deaths in Oregon have been people over the age of 60. 91%. I'm very cross. Actually, I'm cranky.
Uh-oh. Fuck. I missed a good one. I don't know what she said. I hope they repeat it.
As with the BBC News, the Chinese President Xi Jinping has declared that China has scored a complete victory in its fight against poverty. President Xi was addressing a grand gathering in the capital, Beijing, to mark the country's accomplishments in poverty alleviation.
The regional issues have been therefore we a arduous task of eradicating poverty, creating another incredible miracle.
China credits President Xi's leadership with lifting nearly 100 million people from rural poverty over the past 8 years. President Biden has signed an executive order to identify and fix weaknesses in the supply chain for critical items like pharmaceuticals, vehicle batteries, rare minerals, and semiconductors. Mr. Biden said the U.S. should not have to rely on a foreign country during a national emergency.
The bottom line is simple. The American people should never face shortages in the goods and services they rely on. And remember, the shortages in PPE during the pandemic, that meant we didn't have masks. We didn't have gowns or gloves to protect our frontline healthcare workers. That should have never happened, and it will never happen again in the United States, period.
You're going to make contracts with Ontario
to avoid future shortages by boosting domestic production and strengthening ties with allies. The Australian Parliament has passed landmark legislation that will require big tech giants such as Facebook and Google to pay media companies for the news content shown on their platforms. Shama Khalil is in Sydney.
The News Media Bargaining Code had been fiercely opposed by the US tech giants long before it passed. Last week, Facebook blocked all news content to Australians over the standoff, but then reversed the decision after negotiations with the government. The law passed with new amendments, which would make it possible for Facebook and Google not to be subject to the code in some cases. However, both companies have now made lucrative private deals with some big Australian publishers, which has been widely viewed as a compromise. Australia's law is seen as a test case for similar regulation in other countries to get payment from digital platforms for news.
The British...
A few miles north of Big Ridge, they were met head-on by stinging particles of icy snow driven by a high wind. For protection, they pulled the hoods of their parkas forward to shield their faces.
Yeah, I just almost did that. I'm indoors.
AI to map networks operating on the dark web. It'll also counter hostile states and organized crime groups. This is the world news from the BBC.
We missed what we may or may not have missed.
European Union leaders are due to hold a video-linked summit later today as pressure grows for them to accelerate the rollout of coronavirus vaccines. Many European countries have been experiencing second or third waves of cases more than a year after the pandemic began, exacerbated by contagious variants from Britain and South Africa. In Japan, preparations for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics this summer are continuing despite persistent concerns about safety during the coronavirus pandemic. The Tokyo Olympic Organizing Committee has said the torch relay will begin in the last week of March as planned, but organizers have asked spectators lining the streets to offer their support by clapping rather than cheering. A former aide to the New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo has published details online of her sexual harassment allegations against him. In an essay on the media platform, Lindsay Boylan accuses Mr. Cuomo of kissing her on the lips without her consent, inappropriate touching, and describes how he suggested they play strip poker on a private jet. Mr. Cuomo has denied the allegations. Elephants in British zoos are taking part in an experiment that could help save their wild relatives. Details from Helen Briggs.
A vast database of 30,000 thermal images of zoo elephants is being used to train cameras to recognize what an elephant looks like from the heat it gives off. The new technology can identify elephants at close quarters, even in the dark, and issue an alert.
It's hoped the cameras can be deployed in countries where wild elephants roam to help avoid conflicts with humans that can take their toll on lives and property, as well as elephant populations. People and elephants are being forced into ever closer contact as the human population grows and wild habitat disappears.
BBC World News.
Thank you very much for that news. Hello and welcome to Newsday on the BBC World Service with James Cotnell and me.
Yes.
And people wish
If there was an update, we missed it.
We go to coronavirus vaccination. Our reporter looks at the delicate issue of education during the pandemic in Oregon in the United States, and we'll hear about the increase in young Americans identifying as LGBT. And do remember, if you have a comment you'd like to share with us here on the program, you can do so by sending a text to the number +44 77 86 20 50 85.
We start, though, with that rather extraordinary declaration from China, a complete victory in the fight against poverty, President Xi Jinping says. He was attending a gathering in Beijing to mark the country's accomplishments in poverty eradication. Last year, Mr. Xi said nearly 100 million people had been lifted out of extreme deprivation in less than a decade. To discuss this, we can speak to Simon Rabinovich, Asia Economics Editor of The Economist magazine, who joins us from Shanghai. Hi, Simon. First of all, what exactly do the Chinese authorities mean by getting people out of poverty? What sort of metrics are we using?
Why isn't he in Asian economics?
Well, I mean, the big metric, and one that the World Bank would agree with, is that, you go back 4 decades ago, there were about 800 million people living in absolute poverty in China. By official numbers, there's now 0 as of the end of last year. Absolute poverty, to be clear, is living on less than the equivalent of $2.30 a day. So by that metric, China says it has victory over absolute poverty.
Wow.
And yet, of course, you can still have millions, maybe many, many millions of people living in pretty difficult circumstances, even if that line suggests they are not in extreme, abject poverty.
Yeah, that is obviously the case. So, abject poverty, if you define it by that low line, then yes, that China clearly has done
$839.50
if you begin to look at poverty
really?
in a
But what's your
relative
rent,
sense,
though? What are you?
then there's still a long way to go. In fact, it's probably an unwinnable battle. Every country deals with relative poverty. If you look at a slightly higher poverty line in China, say roughly $5 a day, which is more consistent with kind of higher income countries, there's still millions upon millions of people who still have very, very difficult lives in China. But that, in that sense, the victory over poverty is clearly incomplete.
And as you suggest, perhaps unwinnable all around the world. How has China done what it has done? What have been the keys to its success?
Well, I mean, look, the most important thing is just 4 decades of remarkably fast, sustained economic growth. You couple that with urbanization. The biggest pockets of poverty are in rural areas, and people moving away from the countryside into cities. That has been the recipe for poverty alleviation. Now, you get into a big debate then about how much is the government actually responsible for that, and you have different sides in this debate. And clearly, the government by itself did not create the economic miracle, if you call it that, for China. A lot of that was people themselves lifting themselves up, founding companies, working incredibly hard. But the government did obviously have a big role in supporting economic development, enabling it. And the last mile of poverty alleviation, which is what the government is celebrating today, the government played a very big role in terms of providing, really big cash transfers to the last pockets of absolute poverty in China, generating jobs. And so that's what they're celebrating today.
I wonder, to what extent do you think what China has done over the last 4 decades, and in recent years perhaps in particular, is replicable elsewhere in the world? Other countries will be looking at this and thinking, can we do the same?
Well, some aspects of it are replicable, and in fact, you can see other countries that are doing well in terms of the fight against absolute poverty. So certainly elsewhere in Asia, China followed a similar trajectory to countries before it, like South Korea. If you look at Vietnam today, it's in fact eradicating absolute poverty at an even faster pace than China's. But of course, generating that kind of sustained rapid economic growth continuously is very difficult to do. So it's something that other countries hopefully should aspire to, but to actually repeat it is difficult. The challenges that China now faces with, quite extreme inequality, big gaps between rural areas and urban areas, for China itself, dealing with that is going to be a challenge. So, it's going to have to learn from what other countries have done as well. So it's not simply going to be at the head of the class. It's going to have to look at what other countries have done with building up social security systems and supporting poor people, whether they're in absolute poverty or not.
Works both ways. Fascinating stuff. Simon Rabinovich, Asia Economics Editor of The Economist. Thank you very much indeed.
To Lebanon now, where the head of the committee overseeing the rollout of the coronavirus vaccine, Abdulrahman al-Bizri, has threatened to resign after it became known that some lawmakers have received the jabs in parliament, undercutting efforts to ensure that only people eligible for shots get them. Well, the story has gone viral on social media in Lebanon, with tempers frayed and insults flying. So far, only the ethics officer of the COVID committee has resigned after the breaches were confirmed in the implementation of the approved vaccination plan. Well, let's find out more about the scandal from Suniva Rose, who's a senior correspondent in Beirut for The National, which is an English language daily regional newspaper. Morning to you, Suniva. Thank you very much for joining us.
And the private sector is also set, to buy the Russian, Chinese, American vaccines, and the country wants to vaccinate about 80% of Lebanon. So from early on, Lebanon is going through one of its worst economic financial crisis. So the World Bank stepped in and is financing, the doses of the Pfizer vaccine, the first 2.1 million doses. And from the beginning, there were calls, to really watch how it was distributed, with, World Bank officials saying there would be no WASTA. WASTA is a local name, basically for corruption and nepotism. And they asked the IFRC, so the International Federation of the Red Cross, to check that people were vaccinated according to guidelines. And now we're still in the first stage of there were calls, to really watch how it. So when yesterday it emerged, the bank officials saying there would be no WASTA. WASTA is a local name, basically for corruption and nepotism. And they asked the IFRC. It really caused outrage. Especially,
And tell us what kind of backlash there's been. What have people been saying, and who has been saying it?
Well,
Bonjour Edouard, vous nous parlez des tests salivaires. C'est une nouvelle arme pour les biologistes afin de traquer ce Covid-19 et qui devrait donc améliorer considérablement la politique de dépistage en France.
Oui, pour l'instant, le test le plus répandu, c'est le nasopharyngé par PCR, un acronyme qui nous est familier depuis quelques mois, celui où le soignant va chercher des traces de virus dans le nez à l'aide d'un écouvillon. Alors, ce n'est pas très agréable, surtout pour la personne qui se fait tester, mais ça reste la méthode de référence avec un taux de fiabilité à 98%. Une autre solution pourrait être prochainement plébiscitée
largement et rentrer en ligne. Donc je me dis qu'il y a peut-être des responsabilités à prendre également au niveau gouvernemental pour que l'on puisse hâter davantage la vaccination, faire en sorte effectivement de mieux la répartir entre les circonscriptions, les territoires qui sont très menacés et ceux qui le sont beaucoup moins, peut-être réquisitionner des entreprises.
The rocket ship is too low, you're going to hit the bridge, sir. What was that?
Mais à les produire de manière plus rapide. Je ne voudrais pas que demain on oppose le droit des marchés avec la vie des habitants.
Jean-René Le Serre, puisque vous évoquez les vaccins, le ministre de la Santé, Olivier Véran, a promis l'arrivée rapidement, on n'a pas exactement la date, de 16 700 doses de vaccins en plus pour la région.
C'est bien, mais le Nord à lui seul, c'est 2 630 000 habitants.
Jean-René Le Serre, donc président du département du Nord, avec Julien Langlais sur France Info.
Le réveil de l'écho avec Serre France, conseil expertise comptable pour la performance des créateurs et chefs d'entreprise. Rendez-vous sur serfrance.fr.
Et toute l'actualité économique en 3 titres. Avec vous, Emmanuel Cuny, bonjour.
Bonjour à tous.
Le gouvernement élargit son plan d'aide aux entreprises en difficulté.
Oui, Bruno Le Maire annonce un renforcement de la prise en charge d'une partie des coûts fixes des entreprises les plus pénalisées par la crise. Alors les coûts fixes, ce sont les charges que les sociétés doivent payer, quel que soit leur niveau d'activité, le loyer, les frais d'électricité, etc. Les secteurs concernés sont l'hôtellerie, la restauration et le tourisme. Mais ce plan va s'accompagner d'un durcissement en parallèle pour les entreprises de la restauration.
I think the doctor's testimony will show someone held that night. No. No. By your own testimony, you were the only one in Hendrick's house. So you must have held it. But you can't say I killed Hendrick. I didn't do it, I tell you. I swear I didn't. Then you may hang for the man who's dead. The doctor will testify to the nature of the fatal wound. No. No, listen, Hendrick was stabbed, the knife was held, not thrown. You framed Travis, and you'll hang for it. But I tell you, I didn't kill Hendrick. Who did? I don't know who did.
You get it with a
Let go of me. Let's have it, Daggett. Let's have the truth. I'll talk. I'll talk. It was Mac. Travis Parker? Yeah, it was McDuffie. He asked me to go with him to talk to Hendrick. He said it was just a business.
Yuan, or $7,700 in compensation for the housework undertaken by his wife, who is a stay-at-home mom. The judge of the case, Feng Miao, explained her verdict.
The compensation value is based on the time span of their marriage, the wife's amount of housework, the husband's income, and the average local living standards.
It's the first such verdict after the civil code took effect in China this year. According to the code, the person who takes on more responsibilities in taking care of children, the elderly, or assists with others in the family has the right to ask for compensations in a divorce. The compensation is not part of the joint property shared by the couple.
You don't get away with trying to double dip like that. It's not.
The one who spends more time on work can continue to enjoy their social resources, positions, and level of income. Those normally won't change after divorce. The one who stays around the house.
Radio Pakistan, nothing. Toronto, too. I should be able to pick this up. It's not that far away, right? Shouldn't be a problem, right? Something around here should be working.
Hi, Charles. I'll be quick as I can. 2018, my brother and I both had surgery, so I moved in with him, so we both helped each other recovering. Anyway, as we recovered, and the pandemic started, we were isolated, but, we thought, both of us thought, let's just pick up the phone and talk to people. Time passes so quickly. We were very lucky both to survive our surgeries, but we felt bad for people that were in nursing homes, retirement homes, no one could visit, many people dying. So we were very lucky, but, we all get busy, Charles, and everyone's busy with their life and families, but pick up the phone, even when we couldn't visit, pick up the phone and say hello. It's a little thing that really helps because, on a bad day, we go, woe is me, but we are very lucky in Canada. When we came out of the hospital, our bill was $0. We'll deal with the politicians later, but opening a door or helping shoveling between cars for elderly people, little things. Not for the thanks, just because it's the right thing to do and it feels good.
Steve, I'm not arguing with you or confirming you, but I want to tell you, when people are feeling down, when people are feeling lonely, when they're feeling isolated, when they feel like nobody gives a darn about them, you know what, Steve? There's no such thing as a little thing. Opening a door, bringing someone some food, it's not a little thing. It's a big thing. You're a big man, and so is your brother. And thank you so much for calling, and thanks for doing what you're doing for your neighbors. Texting to Charles Adler tonight. Charles, I'm in my mid-60s, live alone, got a few good friends, able to do some socializing, but a secret I learned a long time ago about combating loneliness was to make sure that you were your own best friend. It makes a big difference in how you look at life. Lawrence in Berkeley.
Well, that was a desperate rough and tumble fighting. He and McDuffie were on the floor, rolling and thrashing. McDuffie was trying to bring the gun to bear, and Preston was hanging up.
Southeast Asian countries, including Singapore and Brunei. Thailand has also decided to adapt another Chinese hit drama, Boss and Me. Chinese screenwriter Shi Han says to earn more of the market share globally, Chinese dramas must.
L'un est le directeur du laboratoire, l'autre est un polytechnicien, certainement très doué, qui donc on doit en référer au premier. Le premier s'appelle Frédéric Tangy. Frédéric Tangy a déjà découvert beaucoup de vaccins. Et les deux hommes vont travailler en parallèle. Le directeur lance son équipe et s'aperçoit qu'une personne de son équipe travaille dans son dos, travaille par devers lui. Et quand il va se plaindre de cette concurrence, la direction de Pasteur n'y fait rien. Et au contraire, on va la laisser prospérer. Donc l'histoire absolument...
So I decided, forget it. I'm going to pick up the phone. I did. It felt great. I spoke to my little nieces and nephews. I spoke to my old aunts and uncles, every cousin in between. Mostly, I got a few. What's wrong? Who died? But after we got past that, you know, you don't speak to someone in 10 years, they're wondering what's wrong, and you say, no, it's COVID. I miss you. I love you. I care about you. I'm thinking about you. And I felt worlds better, and I think they did too. Great idea by me. I'll take it.
Chris, thank you so much. I just want to say that on that day, on Family Day, you made the phone a smartphone. That's the smartest thing you can do. Megan is texting Charles. Megan here, listening from Courtney on Vancouver Island. I usually listen to CKNW in the morning before I get ready for work. The past couple of months, I've started listening to you in the evenings. Blown away by the types of conversations that you bring to this table. I'm only 29. My husband and I have lived in this new town for a couple of years, but we're not able to meet any new couples. Currently, I'm pregnant, unable to meet anybody in person to talk to who also may be pregnant, or meeting new expectant moms as well. That's just one of the things I find challenging here. Another, we moved here with the hopes of gaining a new friendship group that have like minds and like to do the same things, but we're unable to do it at this time. So I love my husband, but it's also hard to be best friends all the time when it's the only friend you have. And lastly, Charles, I work in a medical office where I'm working very closely with a number of patients. I've noticed recently about people, trying to read the last part of this letter, but I can't get to the end of it for some technical reason. I do apologize for that. Megan, thank you very much for that. Appreciate your loyalty. Good luck with the baby. Good luck with your new love and your new life on Courtney on Vancouver Island. It's a true fact about many parts of this country that sometimes there's some frostiness in the first little while, that not everybody's rolling out the welcome mat, but I'm confident that eventually you'll meet one friend, one good friend, and that will lead to many others. Thank you very much, and please stay in touch with us. This is Craig from Drumheller, Alberta, and Craig, you're up on Charles Answer tonight.
You both know it. Yeah, hey, Charles, we've actually talked before. We talked last year about fracking before oil went the worst way to go.
I remember the call very well. This time it's a totally different subject. It's frack and loneliness. How you dealing with it, Craig?
It is. Well, actually, it's funny because normally I'm stuck in the middle of nowhere in a little hotel, and I don't get to see my family again until spring. But because of COVID, my family has been coming up to the hotels I'm staying in, and I hate to say it, but I've been watching some of it because I've never spent this much time in a winter with them. You know, I just have to make sure I have a drink well and keep the kids happy. And, yeah, it's awesome.
That is interesting. I've never heard that kind of story during the pandemic. I really appreciate it, Craig, and wish you good luck as always. Let me try to squeeze one in here before the break. Michael in Edmonton. You're on Charles After tonight. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Charles. I spoke with you quite a few months ago about my situation. I'm feeling quite lonely now, even more than ever. I'm from Vietnam. I have a wife there. I've lived in Vietnam for 12 years, and I came here to visit my mom and got stuck here back in March 7th. And haven't been able to go back to my wife in Vietnam since. And I don't see any, you know, I don't know when I'm going to be able to get back, but I've been trying to, you know, make do. I have my mom here, so things have been all right, and I have been talking to my wife on the phone, which helps, but it's, you know, it's just not the same as being together.
Yeah, the phone is touching, but it's not the human touch. Michael, thank you for the call. Thanks for calling again, and please email me. I want to learn much more about you. Charles at Charles.
Living with joint pain and stiffness can be unbearable. Janacol Pain Relief is a natural and lasting solution to reduce joint pain and inflammation in less than 5 days. That's right, 5 days. Trust Janacol Pain Relief.
Why is that person freaking loud?
Prospectors hat just like his. Oh, them to hats, H-A-T, hat, Box L, Chicago 77, Illinois. And don't forget your measurement.
How much money? We'll send you the closest size they have. They're all same size.
And now, here is Sergeant Preston. Sergeant Preston reporting for duty, Inspector.
Sergeant, I have a very important and rather risky assignment for you.
Very well, sir.
George Acton, a young chemist who was living in Selkirk, disappeared from there with his wife and child about a month ago. He must be found.
I'll do my best, sir. What's he done?
He isn't a criminal. He created a serum and sent a sample to laboratories in Seattle. That serum saved several lives. Now an epidemic of diphtheria has broken out there. The authorities want the serum formula telegraphed as soon as possible. You must find George Acton.
Sergeant Preston realized the urgency of the assignment, but he didn't know that death stalked every mile of the trail that led to the man he wanted to find. Be sure to hear this next exciting adventure. These radio dramas, a feature of Sergeant Preston of the Yukon Incorporated, are created by George W. Trendle.
Les soft skills, ce sont les compétences comportementales comme l'adaptabilité, l'esprit d'équipe, la rigueur, l'empathie.
$1 Honda bonus or don't pay for 90 days when you finance. We hope you enjoyed good news from Honda.
Week's notice so that we're actually ready, because when we are able to open, we need to trade as strongly as we can. Every penny is going to count.
At least businesses now have dates on the horizon to work towards. But in these times, the next step in the pandemic can be just as unreliable as the British weather.
That was Nicole Johnston in London. Beijing today getting cloudy skies and 10 degrees Celsius, low of -2 this evening. Chongqing has a slight rainfall in 17, then dipping to 16. Last is sunny in 14, a low of 0. It's time for a short break. So far this hour, China expresses opposition to remarks about Xinjiang made by an official from the UK. China says it's ready to expand cooperation with the United States in the fields of economy and trade. And Cuba is set to be the first Latin American country to release its own COVID-19 vaccine. Shane Bigham with you. Stay with us here on the Beijing Hour.
How sad is that? Cuba's the head of Canada.
Examining the events that impact.
If you have knee pain and you're worried about how long it takes to see a specialist, here's good news from Dr. Lou Nally. Working with a knee clinic, Dr. Lou offers immediate referral to the specialist or orthopedic surgeon and is covered by OHIP. Call Dr. Lou now at Pinpoint Health, 1-855-55-DRLOU, or visit pinpointhealth.ca.
Don't miss the Pinpoint Health Show with Dr. Lou every Saturday morning at 11.
You're listening to Chin Radio AM 1540, the voice of multicultural Toronto, bringing you the latest updates on COVID-19. Stay informed, stay safe, and stay tuned to Chin Radio AM 1540.
E-Elevator, 905-428-8300. Online at C.
Between China and the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. We are firmly opposed to this.
Arab has called for UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, or another independent expert to be given urgent and unfettered access to Xinjiang, and said there should be a resolution at the Council to this effect. Wang says China welcomes people from all over the world to visit Xinjiang. The spokesperson says in recent years, more than 1,200 diplomats, officials from international organizations, journalists, and religious figures from more than 100 countries have visited Xinjiang upon invitation. The Chinese foreign minister says the country is ready to enhance anti-pandemic cooperation with Sri Lanka. Wang Yi told his Sri Lankan counterpart over the phone that bilateral relations maintain strong momentum as the two countries fought against COVID-19 last year. The Sri Lankan diplomat said his country appreciates China's stance on human rights issues and is willing to help safeguard fairness and justice in regional and international affairs. The first batch of Sinovac vaccine from China has arrived in Singapore. Singapore has made advanced purchase agreements with Sinovac in addition to 2 other vaccine companies. The city-state government said earlier they're still assessing the Sinovac vaccine before it's rolled out.
Why do I care? Damn it.
Chinese officials said the country is ready to strengthen exchanges with
Provinces prepare to expand their vaccine rollouts to the general population in coming days and weeks. Sites across Canada that are usually dedicated to sports, business, or entertainment events are being repurposed for mass vaccination. Among the notable landmarks where Canadians will roll up their sleeves, Montreal's Olympic Stadium, the Metro Toronto Convention Centre, and the Canada Games Complex in Sydney, Nova Scotia. Public health officials say the massive Canada's Wonderland theme park in Vaughan, Ontario, is also being eyed as a drive-through vaccine clinic in the spring. Winnipeg police say 13 people have been arrested following a 10-month investigation into a crime ring involving large amounts of cocaine. The drug was allegedly being moved from British Columbia to Winnipeg. Police also seized more than $13 million in assets, including cocaine, 12 vehicles, and 10 properties.
Fuck up. You get a craziest call.
This is Charles Adler Tonight. Once again, here is Charles Adler.
Wow, just looking at some email here, one of them coming from a person who says it's particularly lonely, Charles, in rural Canada. And she's gotten into some online friendships, some of which have gone rather badly. You have all our sympathy. This is the most difficult issue to endure in several generations. I just want, once again, for you to know that although nothing feels lonelier than loneliness, and that's obvious, nothing. No matter how it feels, always know that you're not alone. Many people are walking in your boots as we speak. So we've been discussing loneliness and what you're experiencing during this pandemic and how you may be dealing with it at 1-877-399-9898, 1-877-399-9898. Started off this conversation the first hour of the program with a study out of Harvard that said loneliness is up since the pandemic began, especially among young adults and mothers. And so that's what launched us into this national kitchen table conversation we're having at 1-877-399-9898. Lillian calling in, and I've got a question for her before we do anything else, because she's from a part of the world that I thought I knew.
He is UNICEF's country representative in Ghana.
Today we are at the Kotoka International Airport in Accra, in Ghana, and this is really a historic moment. Today we are very happy to receive the first batch of COVID-19 vaccines through the COVAX facility.
Ghana has recorded more than 80,000 confirmed coronavirus cases and over 580 deaths since the start of the pandemic. The shipment's part of a first wave of coronavirus vaccines being sent to a number of low and middle income countries through COVAX. The COVAX initiative aims to ensure fair distribution and equal access to coronavirus vaccines to those in need worldwide. This is Shane Bigham live from the Chinese capital. Coming up in business, the Mobile World Congress in Shanghai.
At the Beijing Hour on social media. Talk to us on Twitter at the Beijing Hour or on Facebook at Beijing Hour Official.
That's the one they're going to.
36 past the hour, turning to business now. Starting with the markets, U.S. stocks ended higher on Wednesday. The Dow rallied 1.4%. The S&P 500 increased by 1.1%. The NASDAQ rose 1%. Financial analyst Karen Pai.
So in the very short term, the markets. Maybe if
Yeah, but those numbers don't mean much.
Obey all the rules. I go to my husband at the care home. I go shopping, meet a few friends, distantly, of course, and I just deal with it, and I don't even know what the word lonely means.
So, Lillian, there's something you said that has stuck with me, and I wonder if you could help me with this. You talked about one of the ways you deal with things is you bake. Have you got anything that's fresh out of the oven right now?
What you got for us?
Oh, but you know, I could have buns tomorrow. I had matrimonial cake the other day. I got pierogies. I've got Ukrainian food. I just love doing it, and that's my hydro bill is so high.
Oh. Everything you're baking drives me so crazy. I love it all. But before I do anything else, I'll let you go, I promise. But just one thing, Lillian. What's
never noticed.
The best pierogi you make? Not for other people, just for yourself. When you put your choppers on it and it tastes like the greatest pierogi ever. Which pierogi is that? Which is your favorite, Lillian?
Oh, potato, cottage cheese, butter, lots of butter, onion, and cabbage pierogies, and just anything. Pies. I bake all the time.
I love pierogies. Lillian, thank you very much. Thank you very much. You've tantalized us with that. For anyone who's never had a pierogi, I don't know. Is there anyone who's never? Okay, here. If you've never had a pierogi, have one. Have one somewhere. Take the very first.
They don't come in ones.
Please get them to pierogi. You talk about comfort food. There are no foods. I know everyone talks about KD and all of that. I get it. Mac and cheese. It's fabulous, but pierogi to me is the ultimate. Pierogi is the ultimate comfort food to me, in my humble opinion. There you go. This is Evangelos calling in from Vancouver. Evangelos, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us on Charles Andrew tonight.
How are you, Charles?
Oh, is this the crazy caller?
We quite well.
You know, I called you a year ago, and we talked for about 10 minutes. The topic was who would you spend $200 to go see? And the topic was Oprah. I called you, and we talked about Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then it turned into you loving coffee crisp. So there's always a correlation going on here.
What?
I do love coffee crisps. I never get tired of them.
We make those down here in Sterling.
What's your favorite chocolate bar or candy bar, Evangelos?
It's Score. I love the texture. It's crunch, you know? Score is my favorite.
Yeah, I know. People love that crunch. They do love that. So did you say that you would pay $300 to see Schwarzenegger or Oprah or both?
So everyone said they were going to go see Oprah. She was coming last August. I said I would spend $200 to see Arnold Schwarzenegger because he's done everything: political office, bodybuilding, acting, everything he's put his mind to. He's with flying colors surpassed himself. So that was just somebody I would spend money to go here.
Start selling cocaine and
Schwarzenegger can be so inspiring, and although there are people listening, they still love Trump and all that. I'm not going to go on a whole anti-Trump thing here. That's not my point. But Arnold Schwarzenegger probably was among the very best at saying what needed to be said after what happened in the Capitol on January 6th. So if you haven't seen it, just YouTube Arnold Schwarzenegger, January 6th, and he was actually
was he in a movie or did you go see him talk?
Amazing. Even if you're not crazy about Schwarzenegger, he was absolutely amazing. Let me get a couple of texts in. Evangelist, thank you very much for the call, and I hope that you won't take another year before you call us again. By the way, Lillian, if you're still listening, near Russell, Manitoba, okay, Angusville, where Lillian lives specifically. Her husband's in the care home, not too terribly far away, but she's in Angusville. And you clearly inspired someone in Alberta a great deal, because the text is Lillian for Prime Minister. Lillian, I hope you're still with us. I have a feeling that you'd enjoy hearing that. We enjoy getting it for you. Lillian for Prime Minister says this texter, and I've got another one, Lyle, also responding to the Lillian conversation. Mr. Adler, he says, Potato/bacon pierogies. Potato/bacon pierogies. Homemade, the best. Love the program. Thank you, sir. Lyle, thank you, and thanks for loving pierogies. But here's what I want to do right now. Sean O'Shea was at Canada's #1 airport, largest traveled airport when people are traveling. That would be Peterson, near Toronto. And he's got a report here on how some people are not taking the quarantine rule, the new rule that you've got to quarantine for several days in a government, I guess a government-endorsed hotel near the airport, that you've got to be there for 3 days before self-quarantining after testing, after you come back to Canada from anywhere outside Canada, including the United States, of course. So Sean O'Shea was at the airport, and here's the report he filed for Global.
As of Monday, there are 4 airports where international travelers can arrive: Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal, and here Pearson Airport in Toronto. And the rule is basically that once you clear and get a mandatory test, you go straight to one of the approved hotels. There are now 10 hotels here near Pearson Airport. The problem is that the reality is, I guess I should say, is that there's an honor system here. So when people arrive from outside the country, they're supposed to go to the hotel. We've heard that there have been some people who have decided that they are going to perhaps accept the consequences of a ticket or a fine or something like that and not, in fact, go to the hotel. They will face significant fines if the Public Health Agency of Canada decides to pursue those kinds of actions, up to $750,000 fines. But the reality is most people are, in fact, following the law, in spite of some who are apparently not. Here's what the Public Health Officer of Peel and the Mayor of Brampton had to say about those who decided not to follow the rules.
My perspective as a public health officer is, we have asked throughout this pandemic for people not to travel for non-essential reasons. The federal government has now put in place quarantine measures that are designed to protect our community. It's unfortunate that what you're describing might be occurring.
By not being mindful that you can bring dangerous variants into the country, you're being selfish to your neighbors, to your city, and I hope that people do abide by the new stricter guidelines when it comes to your responsibilities if you choose to go in international travel at this point.
I can tell you that the Peel Police have not issued any tickets here since Monday. That has been left to the purview of the Public Health Agency of Canada. They're not doing any on-camera interviews. They're going to get back to us with the numbers of tickets that they have issued later on today. But again, Peel Police, if people come in to decide to keep going, the reality is they will not be stopped. They will not be arrested. It is up to the Public Health Agency to monitor whether people are in fact following the quarantines in the hotels here, as the law stipulates, for the first 13 days and the overall 14-day quarantine.
Sean O'Shea with Global News based in Toronto. So this just in tonight. Remember the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, the Saudi-born
What were the 2 Pakistani journalists killed in Toronto last year or so?
Does the word bone saw mean anything? Yeah,
down at the waterfront in the wintertime.
So here's the news out of Washington. The Biden administration will release an intelligence report tomorrow, Thursday. That concludes. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, sometimes just known as MBS, approved the 2018 killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. This is now being confirmed by 3 American government officials familiar with the story. The intelligence assessment, based largely on the work by the CIA, is not actually new. NBC News was among the organizations that confirmed it in 2018, but it's a public release this time. And its release tomorrow marks a significant new chapter
this is the public release
in the United States-Saudi Arabia relationship, and a clear break by the Biden administration from the former Trump administration policy of being all over the map about the Saudi state's role in a brutal homicide that was widely condemned by members of Congress, journalists, and a UN investigator. So tomorrow it's official from the United States. The ruler, for all intents and purposes, because he is the boss of Saudi Arabia. He's been given that power by the king. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman approved the 2018 killing of Jamal Khashoggi. This show is produced by Jumi Dapo Ogunsola. Our technical producer is Brendan Kelly.
You good?
Our executive producer is Lady Catherine Stewart. We've got Shane Hewitt on deck. Tell us what's coming up next hour on the shift. Thank you for joining us. I'm Charles Andrew tonight.
I really likes pretending.
Me too. I like pretending that I'm not still good.
Oh, damn it. Dragnet. My bad. Let's do sports. Maybe. No, maybe 2 minutes into it. Maybe. Oh.
Overhead kick and also contributed 2 assists. Spurs manager Jose Mourinho says to have Ali back in form is a great help for the team now.
The goal I don't need to speak because everyone watched it, and I believe that around the world
you're supposed to tell us right now. This was your opportunity to tell us. Stupid. Damn it, these guys are dumb. Why are they allowed to
for me, the globality of the performance is what matters. He played very well in every aspect of the game.
Meanwhile, in the Spanish La Liga, Lionel Messi scored twice as Barcelona beat Elche 3-0 to move within 5 points of leaders Atletico Madrid. Messi's
manager Pep Guardiola continues to demand more from his team.
We're not clinical enough up front. The actions, the 1-against-1, and with the keeper, with the defenders, that we have to be more clinical. In this competition, you have to be more. Yeah, I had to be.
His youngest scorer in the UEFA Champions League in the German side's 4-1 win over
Recreational vehicles, small equipment, and non-runners. Then Saturday at 9 a.m. at 300 ex-government and pre-owned vehicles, plus municipal equipment. Buying a vehicle online has never been easier. NTA has a 72-hour buyback, and select vehicles now have financing. Remember, you can also sell your vehicle hassle-free. Get online access anytime with a pro subscription. NorthTorontoAuction.com. You gotta try it. Some conditions apply.
Convince your buddy to buy the car.
The air leaks from the mats wakes up my wife. I want her to get a good, safe night's sleep. What can I do?
If you're concerned about cleaning your CPAP mask and hoses, why not try Dr. Les Creamer's custom-made oral appliance? It's comfortable, portable, and easy to clean. Find out more at dentalstoringsolutions.ca or call Dr. Les Creamer at 416-224-9998. That's 224-9998.
I'm Dr. Les Creamer, and I'd like to give you and your family a good night's sleep. You've been listening to us on the AM dial for decades, but we know parts of Toronto get in the way.
Yeah, that's your damn helicopter.
Download the Radio Player Canada app.
Please, give us an example
revelations yesterday. That's how we should sound all the time. Once you have the Radio Player Canada app on your phone, you can use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto to listen on the 401, the QEW, or wherever.
And match day 2 was completed in the African Champions League. Last night, Al Hilal of Sudan had a player sent off in the 0-0 draw with DR Congo's TP Mazembe in Group B. The host nation, the United States, were winners of the She Believes Cup. Megan Rapinoe scored twice for the Women's World Cup champions in their emphatic 6-0 victory over Argentina. Brazil beat Canada 2-0 in that competition as well. Now, Brisbane has taken a major step towards being named the 2032 Olympic host after the IOC said that the Australian city had been picked as the preferred partner to start talks with the Games. The IOC President Thomas Bach said that they approved the recommendation of the commission in charge of future hosts. And our top story here on Newsday yesterday was about Tiger Woods, the top orthopedic.
Active and connected to experience a premium lifestyle tailored to you, to make plans and live life on your terms, safely together. Find out how at amica.ca.
Scoring free gas sure feels like a win. Hi, I'm John from Speedy Glass. And when you book a windshield replacement with us online, you'll get a $25 e-card to score free gas. At Speedy Glass, you'll also feel like a winner, knowing we install high-quality glass with cutting-edge technology. And we'll fully sanitize your car with our unique 30-contact point process. That's win-win-win. Don't wait. Book your replacement online today.
Can you do it while I sit in my car and get the oil change too?
Speedy Glass Replace. Hey, Cuckoo. What do you tell a teenager about cannabis?
Okay,
I'm playing Haboot Canopy. Music.
Why is that part of the show with finished products that they are unable to sell, several of these manufacturers have had to make the difficult decision of cutting their staff numbers. I can tell you that, for example, for the dairy sector, we are estimating job losses of about 10,000 jobs over the last 1.5 years. And this goes on into the other sectors that are affected. You can understand that this has far-reaching consequences.
And he's Daniel Birungi, Executive Director of Uganda's Manufacturers Association, joining us to tell us more is business reporter Darren Allen Chiyunye, who is in Kampala. Morning to you, Darren. Thanks very much for joining us. So tell us, this is something which hasn't just started in the past year. It's been going on for a couple of years now, but tell us how it's been affecting those in the dairy and other industries like sugar too.
Which part of the world?
Well, thanks for having me. It's been really...
Fuck you.
Welcome.
You're going to be drinking
Canadian
Canadian canned milk, canned by Molson.
I was making tea.
And you do make me sweat, because as you know, I don't have a reputation for being able to rag the puck for more than 4 or 5 hours.
Or is this a handoff to switch over?
Oh my goodness. Oh,
can you imagine? Can you imagine doing talk radio? Seriously.
Couldn't imagine.
Where you actually do sweat if a particular guest or particular clip or something doesn't fire. I mean, if that honestly is making you lose sleep at night or sweat, as we like to say, you really ought to do something else.
Oh.
Yeah, you know, and it's funny because I remember when I was doing a music radio once, and I went to play the next element, as we would say, on the computer. This is after we had gone from, when I started in radio, we were doing records still in carts, but when we went to the computers, I went to push the button.
Hey, don't pretend
to play the commercial break, and everything went bloop, and the screen went blue, and there was nothing left in the studio anymore. And I remember I looked around and I found a CD, and then there was a CD player tucked in the corner, and I turned it on and hoped it worked, and turned on a song, and then went and got help. But that was my first foray into, there's nothing left to do but talk. Here we are. And now it's a job, so I guess it worked out.
Now, you got in a little later, a little after I did a live show. Did you still spin records, or were turntables gone from the control room by the time you got in?
No, I was still spinning records. We were a late station. I actually had worked at some stations without records before I came to a station that had records. I mean, I was DJing with records since the sort of late 80s, early 90s.
Okay. But then when I got in the 70s, and so we had turntables and we had the so-called cart machines, for all intents and purposes, carts, folks. So they look like 8-tracks, and I know some people listening go, 8-track, what the heck is it? Let's just call them cassettes, okay? Industrial
big
size cassettes. All right, fine. So that's what we had. But some of the people I worked with who were naturally older than me, because I was just a kid, I was 18. So the people I was working with who were in their 20s, 30s, 40s, they didn't like these cart machines. They missed the discs, and their attitude was that when they only had to worry about turntables, they didn't have nearly as much trouble as they had with this new technology, the carts. And I could just imagine how they would have felt with the digital technology, which is nothing but the computer, where you're absolutely relying on the computer being 100% perfect, because as we know with computers, if it's not immaculate, you're out of luck. Everything's got to be firing right, or nothing happens. And it would drive these guys crazy, and that's why they really love the turntables. To talk about them now, it sounds like I'm talking about dinosaurs. But the turntable's true. I mean, yeah, occasionally you had a skip on the air, but in general, the turntables were pristine.
Well, and they were not the same kind of turntables that we had at home either. They were like, you could stand on them and spin in circles. Like they were and no, you actually literally could. But I was thinking about screens in the offices and in our studios. You know, before we had computers in every office, you know, you would have, you know, some offices would have a screen, and then, you know, then computers came in, and then most offices had screens, and now most offices have multiple screens. And then when you look at radio studios now, I mean, it was a big thing to be like, well, we don't want to have TV in the studio, so it's not a distraction. And then now there's multiple TVs and there's multiple screens.
And you look at the studio that we're operating out of. I mean, I'm not personally in the studio because of COVID, but the studio that our producer Brendan Kelly is in, I mean, it looks like Star Trek. Spaceship, you know, compared to it's The Empire Strikes Back compared to anything that you and I were working on.
Ewoks.
Oh, it's so cool. And you're going, The Empire Strikes Back. That too is decades old. What's the real time analogy? What is up for grabs today that any kid would relate to today's kind of technology, today's kind of board?
Jeez, I don't know, man. That's tough.
Brendan, you're a sci-fi fan. What's the latest sci-fi? Like what's been hot in the last year and 2 years?
Well, still Star Wars, I guess.
I guess the latest Star Wars?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mind blowing when you look at the technology, and even the fact that all these people work. I was in a meeting today where I acknowledged all of the engineers and IT folks that make this stuff work. The technology to be working from home in all jobs is remarkable. And for this job, it's super remarkable for the types of connections we have. And it's kind of like that unsung hero,
owned by
the IT folks that are making all these connections work. Video calls, all of it.
It's a shout out. Let's do a shout out, not just to our folks, but a shout out to everyone working in IT these days, making it possible for so many of us to do our different jobs at home. Shane, what's the job you're doing next hour? What do we got?
We've got some conversation about sports, NHL, Tiger Woods, plus affirmation and how we can change your life with Michael Lossier later tonight.
Inspiration from Shane Hewitt coming up in moments on the shift. Thank you.
Like I'm at risk. We don't see many people, just a few neighbors and close friends.
Keep it up, Officer Obvious.
Asking everything. We're really careful.
Excuses won't stop the spread of the deadly COVID-19 virus. Until we all get the vaccine, stay home as much as possible. Visit ontario.ca/COVID-19 for more information. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
This marriage just isn't going to work. I wish I had someone to help me through this.
Russell Alexander Family Lawyers #. We'll take care of the legal side so that you can focus on yourself and your family. Go to bookria.ca to book a consultation.
Hiring can be challenging, but ZipRecruiter makes it fast and easy. We talked to Monica Starks, who needed to hire for a pivotal role at her company.
Been delayed. We're not sure when they will happen. But what impact does that have on humanitarian efforts if this political situation continues?
We are determined to shield the humanitarian effort from politics at all costs. But that said, it's likely
Keep it up, Officer Obvious. Keep it up. You're making it so you let your ignorance show. You let your prejudice show. You let your prejudice show. You're real fast with that.
That it might have an impact on the humanitarian situation in general. Various contingency plans, what would happen regardless of what happens.
Look towards the screen is going to freeze up.
Extreme poverty in the country. We take a look at the social and economic transformation.
In Israel, a vaccination passport scheme opens the door for a return to normal life.
We can have our children over. We can have our grandchildren over. We had a new great-granddaughter that we didn't see for a while. We finally saw her, and we're looking forward to see our friends more often.
A billionaire diamond trader will appear in a London court today and face possible extra charges relating to $2 billion bank fraud.
And did you know about the Iraqi Falcons? We find out about the secret intelligence group that battled the Islamic State, foiling suicide bomb attacks and bringing its leaders to justice. That and more after the latest world news.
Has declared that China has scored a complete victory in its fight against poverty. President Xi made the announcement while addressing a grand gathering in the capital, Beijing, to mark the country's accomplishments in poverty alleviation. This report from Stephen MacDonald.
The government says that over an 8-year period, 100 million people have been